shoes, toothpaste, makeup, shampoo, detergent, eyeglasses, toys, food containers, trash bags, carpet, jackets. Oof, all of these have something in common. You know what's that? It's crude oil. All these everyday items are made either directly or indirectly from crude oil. And I'm sure this clearly tells us the importance of crude oil in our day to day lives. So, in today's video, we are going to cover 4 points. Number one, we'll understand the exact connection between crude oil and petroleum. Then, we'll talk about what is the petrodollar. We'll then talk about how did US dollar become so powerful, and ultimately we'll talk about de-dollarization. Is it a myth or a possible reality? I know after watching or after reading all these 4 contents, you might be like, what all things are going to happen in this video? Absolutely. A lot of points to be learned in today's video. So keep on watching the video till the end. First of all, best wishes to everyone on account of Akshaya Tritiya. For those who don't know the meaning of Akshaya, Akshaya is a word which can be split into two words, which is A and Kshaya. Kshaya means something which can be destroyed, but Akshaya is something which cannot be destroyed. What about investments like investment in gold? Can it increase? Yes. Can it decrease as well? Yes. What about money? Money can increase, money can decrease. But what about your knowledge? Knowledge is something which can never be destroyed, and that's why we say knowledge is Akshaya. So, this Akshaya Tritiya, don't only invest in gold, but also invest in knowledge. And that is the exact reason why I have a lot of courses, but this time in Marathi, I have come up with the Decoding Price Action Analysis course, which is already available in English. But just in case if you're not aware about the top features of this course, number one, whatever technical knowledge you have, that will go to the next level after you complete this course. In this course, I have taught about a lot of AI powered scanners through which you can scan 5,000 plus stocks with a single click. You'll also learn some new concepts like SEPA, VCP, Darvaz box, and that too with loads and loads of practical examples. Now, whether you are following charts with some chart patterns or even without chart patterns, what if you can decide when to buy, when to sell, how to set a stop loss, how to trail a stop loss, when to add your positions? What if all of these things are covered in this course, which they are? And the most important point, how to be successful while you are trading. And I'm so happy to announce that this course, which is already available in English, is now also available in Marathi at this introductory offer price. But this offer is only for a limited period. So hurry and enroll now at www.rachanaranade.com, and don't forget to invest in this Akshay knowledge. Now, first, let's get started with two key questions. Number one, what is the actual connection between petroleum and crude oil? And very important, what is the petrodollar? Now, if I were to just dissect this word petrodollar, it contains of two words, petro and dollar. Well, petro is not petrol. Petro is petroleum. And for those who are like, acha, petroleum? Is that different from crude oil? Answer is no. Petroleum and crude oil are actually used interchangeably. Petroleum is like more scientific, more formal word. Crude oil is used in normal parlance. Okay. Now that we know that, okay, petroleum, crude oil are almost the same, now we have to understand that why does dollar come into picture? I'll give you a simple example on my thought process. Assume that I'm talking about India. India is buying oil from Saudi Arabia. Ideally, what will a layman think about? Layman will say that, okay, India is buying from Saudi Arabia, so obviously payment will ideally be done in Indian rupees or maybe in Saudi's currency, which is Saudi Riyal. Where does dollar come into picture? Well, the answer lies back in 1970s. And if you feel that the answer lies in 1970s, let me tell you that answer lies in 1944. And if you're like, this is too much, Rachana. If you're like a normal student who is least interested in history, please skip to this timestamp. But if you're a curious learner and if you want to understand what happened in 1944 and 70, this is a very interesting piece of history. Let's try and understand. It's 1944. World War II is almost over. Europe is destroyed. Japan is in ruins. But one country came out of the war stronger than it went in: the United States of America. In a small town called Bretton Woods in New Hampshire, leaders of 44 countries sat down together and asked one question: how do we rebuild the global economy? The answer was simple. We need one stable currency that everyone can trust. And the US dollar got that job because America had the largest gold reserves in the world. The deal was that every country's currency would be pegged to the US dollar and the US dollar would be backed by gold. This is called as the gold standard. The dollar was backed by real gold sitting in Fort Knox. But here's where it gets really interesting. America was spending massively on the Vietnam War, on social welfare programs, and on being the world's police and becoming a superpower. They were printing more dollars than they had gold to back it. Other countries started getting suspicious. France, in fact, actually started sending ships to the US to exchange their dollars for physical gold. The gold reserves were draining very fast. On the night of August 15th, 1971, President Nixon went on national television and made an announcement that shocked the world. He said the US will no longer exchange dollars for gold. Just like that, the gold standard was dead. The dollar was now backed by nothing physical. No gold, no commodity, just the trust and credibility of the US government. This is called as fiat currency, which means that money that has value simply because the government says it does. But here's the problem this created. If the dollar is no longer backed by gold, why should the rest of the world still trust it? Why should they still hold dollars? America needed a new anchor for its currency, and they found one. Not in their vaults, but under the deserts of Saudi Arabia. Just 2 years later, in 1973, a war breaks out in the Middle East. Egypt and Syria attack Israel. America supports Israel. In retaliation, Arab oil producing nations did something nobody expected. They stopped supplying oil to the US and its allies completely. Overnight, oil prices quadrupled, petrol stations ran dry, and people waited in lines for hours just to fill their tanks. The American economy was in panic. This event is called the oil shock, and it revealed something terrifying. The world's most powerful economy was completely vulnerable to oil supply. America realized something in the moment. Whoever controls oil controls the world. So in 1974, US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger flew to Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, and struck a gentleman's deal, that is an informal deal that would quietly reshape the entire global financial system. The deal was straightforward but genius. Saudi Arabia would price all its oil sales exclusively in US dollars. In return, America would provide military protection, weapons, and a security guarantee to the Saudi royal family. Saudi Arabia then convinced the rest of OPEC to follow the same rule. Oil will only be sold in dollars. Think about what this meant. Every country on earth needed oil, and every country that needed oil now had to acquire US dollars. The dollar was no longer backed by gold, but it was now backed by oil. And those dollars that oil exporting nations earned from selling their oil, they got a name. Petrodollars. That's how US dollar became powerful and world's largest reserve currency. And this single arrangement became the foundation of American financial dominance for the next 50 years. If you did like the history that we just discussed in a very interesting manner, please don't forget to smash that like button. My editors will also feel very nice, correct? It is said that whatever mistakes we make in history, ideally we should learn from them, we should correct them. And it does so happen that there are a lot of people who watch my channel, they like it, but they don't even subscribe to the channel or hit the bell icon. So anyone who has made that mistake in history, it's time to correct that. Pause this video, smash the subscribe button, and also hit the bell icon. This will ensure that whenever I come up with interesting and informative videos, you'll be notified about it, right? With that said and done, let's go to 2 years ago, that is in 2024. You might be like, what happened in 2024? Have a look at this. This is an article by Fortune, and this says 2 years ago, Saudi Arabia quietly cancelled the petrodollar deal. Remember what was that? A deal that US made with Saudi Arabia that Saudi will price oil only in US dollars, and that Saudi will also convince other OPEC. Okay, but what happened was that they are mentioning Saudi Arabia quietly cancelled the petrodollar deal with America that wired the world economy for 50 years. Now, where did this 50 years come from? If you remember, I had told you that in 1974, exactly, this was the Kissinger's secret trip where the entire deal was made. But then everyone understood one important point. And if you want, I can just show this to you. What does this article mention further is that in 2024, Saudi Arabia did not formally renew its commitment to pricing oil exclusively with dollars. So in 2024, Saudi Arabia said, okay, thank you. Now we are not going to give exclusive pricing in dollars. We may price our oil in different currencies as well, because the agreement was done back in 1974. It was for 50 years, and that's where the agreement ended in 2024. One more very important point. While the 1974 agreement was never a formal obligation, and that is the reason why, if you remember, in the history, I told you that it was a gentleman's handshake. It was like an informal agreement. I didn't show you an image where contracts were being signed. Okay, so it was like a informal obligation, and its secretive nature leaves question mark about whether it resulted in a policy change. Saudi Arabia has made moves to diversify its trade partners. Now, in the same point, so what did we understand till now? Well, the deal was done in 1974. It was for 50 years. In 2024, Saudi said that we will not exclusively price the oil in dollars. But then who is said to be the bigger winner in this game? It is said to be China. Now, a question might have popped up in your mind that why was China given so importance by Saudi Arabia? And for that, I tried to have a look at a very interesting article. Now, this one talks about how much oil does Saudi Arabia export to different countries. And this one in 2020 says that their primary exporting nation was US and Canada with 21.5%, Europe with 16.6%, and there somewhere in corner 1.6% China. This was 2020. Now let's see what happens in 2022. Ta-da! China at number 1, 23.8%. Then Japan at 14.6%, India at 13.9%. And where is USA? There in the corner, 8.1%, Europe 9.5%. So now you'll understand why was China given so much importance. I tried to check the source. Source was OEC. So I said, why not go to the OEC website? And that's where I saw that China is still dominating the charts even in 2024. It's China, then South Korea, and then India. So obviously, if US is again nowhere in the top 3, if you see US is right there in the corner with $13.3 billion of trade, in that case, obviously Saudi would also want to take this as an economic decision rather than a political decision, and that is where they might have thought of not pricing the oil exclusively in dollars. Now, what happens with this? Entire globe keeps some money as forex reserves, okay, and majority countries ideally used to keep US dollars as the biggest currency reserve. If I were to put this in numbers, the dollar share of global forex reserves was at 71% back in 1999. And you know how much it has come down to? If you check here, currently it is just at 57%. This whole stat tells us that the importance of dollar is going down and down by the day, and this is where the term de-dollarization started gaining more and more importance. But exactly what is de-dollarization? Is it a myth or a possible reality? That's exactly what we are going to understand in the next section of the video. Now, when I read this de-dollarization concept for the first time, I thought, let me just go through some news article and try and understand what does that exactly mean. And that's where I came across this JPMorgan news article. And this one mentions what is de-dollarization. Now, if you have a look at this, it says, in short, de-dollarization entails a significant reduction is the word, significant reduction in the use of dollars in world trade and financial transactions, decreasing national, institutional, and corporate demand for the greenback. So, what does it say? Does de-dollarization means stop using dollars? No, it says reduce the use of dollars. This is not going to happen overnight. A currency which has been dominant for past 50 plus years can't be used like a switch on and switch off button. So here the concept is focusing on the fact that you should slowly try to move away from dollars. That is a concept of de-dollarization. But then what else does it say? It says that the concept of de-dollarization relates to changes in the structural demand for the dollar that would relate to its status as a reserve currency. Now, if you remember, I told you that dollar as a reserve currency, the percentage which used to be around 71% is currently around 57%, and that itself challenges its status of being absolutely a dominant currency. But then the question is that if trading is not done in US dollars, then what? Examples are very simple. I told you, for example, when China buys from Saudi Arabia, they will buy oil not in dollars but in yuan. If you remember the way I started the video, India buying from Saudi, we would make the payment in Saudi riyal or in INR. Why in US dollars? Or for that matter, I'm sure you might be knowing that when we purchase oil from Russia, payment is done in INR or sometimes in Russian ruble. So all of these things point to one main factor that every country is trying, not every, a lot of countries are trying to focus on de-dollarization, that is slowly moving away from the dollar system. But question is, why did countries try to de-dollarize? One of the primary reasons that was seen was during Russia Ukraine war, when gave US came up with a lot of sanctions and US froze a lot of Russian assets. Basically, Russia had a lot of investments in US dollars and USA said nothing doing, will not give you that money. They froze their assets. Similar thing has happened with Iran. A lot of Iran's money has been frozen by USA. And in such situations, countries feel that it's my money in your currency, agreed, but then why are you freezing that? In such cases, countries may feel that we should try and move away from such a currency, and that's where the concept of de-dollarization becomes more and more powerful. But the question is that if the trade is not happening in dollars, then do we really have an alternate payment system? And answer is yes. For example, China has CIPS, Russia has SPFS, and BRICS also has a new system which is called as BRICS Pay. So, with these transactions, alternate payment systems, can I say the pace at which de-dollarization may happen can slightly increase? Answer is yes. And now, question, as US being the main reserve currency, can I say that is also slowly getting challenged? Answer is yes, because a lot of central banks are accumulating a lot of gold. Ultimately, I think everyone understands that every country wants to ensure that they are not dependent only on one country, but reducing the dominance from a country and rise of new powers is not a one day process. That happens as a slow process. New powers, be it China, India, or the entire BRICS nations, as I can say, their dominance is slowly and steadily increasing, and the dominance of dollar is slowly decreasing, and that is the whole point of de-dollarization. This was my honest effort to bring in macroeconomics, geopolitics, all into one single video. If you did like it, please just say, geopolitics in the comments. And also, if you want me to make a separate video, a way more detailed video on de-dollarization, you can also write de-dollarization in the comments. If I get a lot of comments, I will surely make a separate video on that. If you did like this video, don't forget to smash the like button as well. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Jai Hind and bye bye. You might have come across such advertisements on various social media platforms. Please note, all of these are fraudsters promising unbelievable returns through stock tips. I don't provide any calls or advisory services. I provide only educational content through my social media handles and through my website rachanaranade.com and rachanaranade.in.